afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar for the MSU Executive MBA Alumni Association. Today we have with us Brenda Meller of Meller Marketing. She is the queen of LinkedIn. So if there's anything about LinkedIn, she is the person to go to. So before we get started, though, I do want to go over a few housekeeping items so you know how to participate in today's event. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. So if you prefer to call in over the phone, just go to your audio pane and select telephone to get the dial-in information. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to Brenda by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel and also typing information into the chat. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. She's going to go ahead, do her presentation, and answer questions at the end. Let's go ahead and I'll turn it over to Brenda.
Awesome. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm kind of in the background, just getting a couple of things set up. As we get the conversation started, you know, Kendra, before we were kind of getting set up in here, Kendra and I were having a quick discussion about video and how, you know, we're in this world now where it's really hard to engage with your audience unless you can see them and do, you know, even little things, Kendra, too, like, okay, I told a joke, was my joke funny? I don't hear any laughter, you know, unless I see heads nodding and smiles and stuff. And you guys are all in view only mode. So you can see me, but I can't see you. So it's really important for me that you're all getting some great value out of today's session. So I want to kind of keep you engaged throughout. So I will be asking questions and I would love it if you guys could message in chat. So first question would be, is there anything you're hoping I cover in today's session? Any burning questions you have about LinkedIn, whether it's using LinkedIn for business development, for positioning yourself for a future board position, if it's you're on LinkedIn, you're not using it all, where do I get started? Or if there's some specific feature that you're hoping I cover in today's talk, message in chat. And I need to figure out, Kendra, how I look. Can I look at the chat as well? I'm not seeing a chat view in my pane right now.
You can see it, so it's in the little pane. You'll see there's it says webcam, audio, dashboard, attendees.
There we go.
At the bottom. There you are.
I think I found it, so I said good afternoon, so you guys can see me in your chat pane there.
And
so
that went to organizers and panelists only.
Let's try this
Drop
again.
down for the entire audience.
So I'm seeing organizers only, organizers and panelists, Kendra Corman, or send question to staff. I'm not seeing, like, is there an everyone drop down?
I have one. So
okay, you might have to message to people, but I'm not seeing. So when people chat back, I want to make sure I can see their messages. Can I see their messages? I see attendees. I see there's 37 attendees. So good afternoon. I see you guys are on here. I just can't see your names, and I want to make sure I can see your chat. Are you seeing any messages coming in yet, Kendra?
Making you an organizer too. So let's
and
see.
Hey guys,
no
if you're
chat
watching, I want to make sure you can hear and see me, and that you're able to respond to these chat questions too, that you guys know where your chat panel is at. So if you have any questions about LinkedIn, drop them in chat, or if you want to just say good afternoon so we know that you can hear us and that you know where that chat panel is, that would be great. Are you seeing anything coming in yet, Kendra?
Not yet. I'm watching.
Okay, we're gonna wait for you guys. So if you can see chat, do that. And there's also, I'm seeing a couple, like you can raise your hand in here too. There's a couple other features, you know, within here.
Yeah, that's to acknowledge anything, but we won't be able to unmute them for questions. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So let me know when you're seeing at least. Are you seeing any chats coming in yet, Kendra? I'm going to wait until we at least see one message coming in from participants.
So.
This is kind of the, you know, the technology is great.
Yeah, this is always the technology. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah, go right ahead. And technology works when it's working, but especially when we're in a session where we're delivering the content out, I want to make sure I get some audience feedback before we begin. You know, yep, audio is working good. Yep, video is working good. Or a good afternoon, so I know you guys can hear me and that you're able to see the broadcast okay. So if you're seeing or hearing me, send me a message in chat right now. You can send that to all panelists if you're seeing that as an option in there, and then we'll get started.
Okay, So we do have a couple people that were having trouble with the chat. So it must, again, I apologize for the way I set this up. So we've got a bunch of questions though in the questions pane, so that's good. So people are going through the questions pane, and then we have a couple people who have raised their hands and asked questions. So we've got a ton of people that have asked questions. So
okay. So Joseph, thank you. I see it now. Audio is working good. Thank you for that feedback. Let's see here. Good afternoon. I can hear you good and clear. Thank you. I'm not sure who that one came in from, but I'm starting to see a couple of things that are in here. All right, so Kendra, I think I'm going to have to rely on you to navigate the questions pane because it's not coming up too well for me. But now that I can see you guys can hear me and the audio sounds okay, I feel more confident moving on. So the very first thing is I have a handout, voila, in front of me here. I'm going to ask Kendra, I just messaged you on LinkedIn, Kendra, with a new link. And what I've done, guys, is I've provided a list of 10 items I'll be covering here. You can see optimizing your time and presence on LinkedIn. And these will be the points that I will be covering. I'm going to ask Kendra to message that to you guys. You'll also get a follow-up email where you can get a link to download this. I have this up on SlideShare as an unlisted document. So anyone who's in today's session, you can basically get a copy of that and then you can download it. So I mentioned that to you so that you're not worrying about, do I need to write down my notes furiously? Yes, you'll get a copy of this so you can have this in front of you. And then Kendra, are we recording today's session today?
Yes, we are recording it for them, and it'll be on the closed network.
All right, perfect.
Of people that registered.
Awesome, and that way you guys can watch the playback too. So if there are points that I am covering that you want to review again, you can always look back at the playback. And I'm a pretty savvy tech person, so usually when I'm watching a webinar, I'll have like the webinar open in one screen and I'll like pull LinkedIn open in another because I'm like networking with people along the way. But same thing for today. If you feel comfortable with the technology, you can kind of have WebEx on one side and then pull up LinkedIn, your live LinkedIn on the other side, and you can kind of follow along with me as we're going here. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. And I'm planning on talking until about 12:30-ish, presenting the tips for you guys. And I'll ask Kendra to feel free to jump in and interrupt there if there are questions that people are having throughout. If not, then I'll just kind of go through the presentation and then we'll open it up to Q&A. And this will be a facilitated Q&A, guys. So if you have questions, ask those throughout in the chat or using the questions feature. When we get to the Q&A portion, I'll have Kendra read those out loud. And then I will certainly be happy to navigate to LinkedIn. If you want me to look up your company page, your personal profile, ask specific questions, be happy to do so. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So very first tip, and am I able to do a screen share in here too, Kendra? Let me see if I can do a screen share, or do you give screen share controls over to
You're
me?
doing screen share. I see, I can see in the audience view my LinkedIn page.
Okay. So let's see if I collapse this down, the questions panel. So are you seeing both me with my video up on screen and then LinkedIn up on screen? Okay, so now is it just LinkedIn you're seeing up on screen?
Yeah, well,
okay.
And you. I got a little bit of a window.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm gonna get started here. So my very first thing is my very first I'm kind of talking about top 10 things to do on LinkedIn now to optimize your results in both your time and your presence. We don't want to be spending endless hours spinning our wheels on LinkedIn, but we also want to make sure that we're getting good impact with what we're doing. And the very first tip I would offer you is that when you connect with people on LinkedIn, you want to include a personal note every single time. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find somebody in my LinkedIn homepage feed right now, and I don't know if I can get an attendee name, somebody who's on the session. Kendra, could you give me one of the attendees' name that is in the session here today? Because I'm going to look them up on LinkedIn and I'll send them an invitation.
Yeah, you can use Byron Corman.
Okay, Byron Corman.
My husband, he's on.
Oh, okay.
He's right over there. So we can
C-O-R-M-A-N? Spell the last name for me.
Yep,
I'm sorry.
C-O-R-M-A-N.
Okay,
and
so
then
Byron.
First name is Byron.
All right, so Byron, you need a little bit of help on your LinkedIn here. We got some blank areas in here. So when I visit Byron's profile to connect, first thing is, if you ever notice if LinkedIn pops up a bunch of search results, and sometimes it'll say in the search results there'll be a connect button next to the person's name, don't click on connect there. Instead, you want to go to that person's profile, and you know you're in the right place when you can see that rectangular image that's right behind them. Byron's got the default, and I always advise people change it to something that's more branded for your company. But I know I'm in the right place because I can see that rectangular header image that's behind him. When I click on the connect button, I can either add note or send now. One of the biggest mistakes I see is that people are just sending now. They're not including any sort of a personal note. What I recommend is that you include a note every single time and personalize it for that individual. The formula I use is this. If I know the person, I will say, hi, Byron. We met on today's MSU Executive MBA webinar. Let's connect on LinkedIn, Brenda Meller. So I have hi, first name. I give them a point of reference, how I know them. I remind them. I don't know about you guys, I have mom brain. I might forget tomorrow Byron's name, right? Or I may remember that I met someone, but I can't quite place where I met them from. So giving them that context is always helpful, kind of takes that pressure off of them for remembering, right? And then I'm asking for the invitation, let's connect on LinkedIn. I'm not asking for a coffee meeting. I'm not sending them to my Calendly link. I'm not sending them to my website or any of that stuff. I'm just saying, let's connect on LinkedIn, Brenda Meller. Now, if I hadn't met Byron before, what I would do is I would take a moment or two, maybe 10 or 15 seconds, not a lot of time, take 10 or 15 seconds to scan through Byron's profile. And I'm going to find one or two things that we have in common, or one or two things that are interesting to me about his profile. And let's just assume today that I've never met Byron. He wasn't on the webinar. So I would say in here, hi, Byron. We haven't met yet, but I'm going to typo in there. Let me fix that. And then here's what we have in common. We are both in Metro Detroit, and we share several common connections, including Kendra. And in this case, you know, that's his wife, so I'm not going to mention Kendra Corman, but I certainly could reference the person's last name as well. And then I'm going to do the ask, let's connect on LinkedIn, Brenda Meller. Short and sweet. In this case, the formula here is hi, first name. I like to say we haven't met yet, but because when I say we haven't met yet, it lets them know, no, we haven't met. Because sometimes you get invitations and you're like, do I know this person or do I not know this person? That takes the pressure off. Okay, no, we haven't met. But we are, and here's where I include the items. The things that we have in common, we're both in Metro Detroit, and we also share some common connections, including Kendra. So that kind of shows that person I'm actually taking the time to get to know them, looking at their profile. Then the ask, let's connect on LinkedIn. Still, I'm not doing a sales message, even though I might want to sell to him at some point in the future. I'm not selling to him here. This is not the place to sell. I am just asking for the connection. I'm not asking for a virtual coffee or anything else. It's just the connection. Because my goal in invitations, guys, is to get you to accept my invitation. It's not to sell to you. I'm here to earn your trust so that you can accept that invitation, and then we can continue that dialogue. So this is step number one, include a personal note with every invitation and make it all about them. Now, related note to this, guys, if you go to my profile on LinkedIn, I am one of those people whose default button doesn't say connect, it says follow. So if you ever see that on someone's profile, myself included, here's the workaround. Go to the more button instead. When you click on the more button, you'll see an option that will either say personalized invitation or invite to connect, something like that. That's where you can connect with that person, and you'll still have that option to include a personal note, okay? I would encourage you guys to do so. Connect with me if you want to practice along. What I will often do is I might go on my phone and do the same technique so I can kind of follow along with you and invite people to connect as I'm going through the session. So feel free, when you go on the phone, still want to go to the more button for my profile and click on personalized invite or connect, okay? Mention today's session and be happy to accept your invitations. All right, my second tip for you is to post daily on LinkedIn.
Brenda,
yes.
Brenda, that brought up a quick question that
Sure.
I thought would be good to ask now. What's the difference between connecting and following?
Great question. So when you follow someone on LinkedIn, that gives you the ability to start to see their posts in your homepage feed. And a follow is a one-way request, meaning if you followed me, Kendra, I don't need to accept that you're following me on LinkedIn. When you follow me, it just means it's almost like you're subscribing to my LinkedIn post, and you can start to see my posts in your homepage feed. In comparison, a connection request, you send it to that person, the person have to accept. So it's a two-way relationship building technique. Versus follow, it's just one way. You click the follow button and you're automatically following. You don't have to wait for an approval. When you follow, you don't have the ability to message that person unlimited. You can message them one time or you can use in-mails, but there's going to be a limit there, and you don't have an approval from them. So it's a bit of you haven't built that relationship of trust just yet. The follow is more of like a one-way, right? Connections, in comparison, when you connect with someone, you send them an invitation and they accept, or they send you an invitation and you accept, but there's a two-way exchange of that desire to be connected on LinkedIn. And then you have the ability to message them back and forth, one-to-one, unlimited. And you've also built in trust there. You know, somebody has extended and somebody has accepted, so there's trust that's built in. Does that help out?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right, perfect. All right, so moving on to posting strategy on LinkedIn. I recommend that you post once every business day, but at minimum, guys, try to make sure that you're posting at least once a week on LinkedIn. And the reason for this is that it's really easy to blend into the background and be forgotten on LinkedIn. When you connect with people, unless you're interacting with those folks, they can tend to kind of forget about you, right? And when you post on LinkedIn, your post goes up into the homepage feed. And here's some statistics to keep in mind. LinkedIn has 690 million members, and it's still growing in terms of a professional networking platform, but less than half of people go onto LinkedIn monthly, okay? And when they factor in all the time that people are spending on LinkedIn, the average person is only spending about 17 minutes a month on LinkedIn, okay? So, you know, there's some people that are heavy users, myself included. I'm on there every single day. And there's some people that go on LinkedIn a couple times a year at best, right? So they're only seeing a portion of posts and activity for that time that they go on a few times a year. Other people, even if you go on once a day, a couple times a day, you're only seeing a portion of the posts that are out there at the time when you read through the homepage feed, okay? So when you post daily, you have a higher likelihood that that person is going to see your post in the homepage feed at that moment in time, at that day when they go on to LinkedIn. And what I like to do, guys, is we're in a day right now, a day and age of just online events with this whole COVID thing happening. So we're doing a lot of webinars and educational sessions and things like that. And here's what I would encourage you to do. Anytime you're on a webinar like you are today, especially, you know, I as a presenter, I'm giving you permission. If there's something that is interesting to you today, take a picture of it and post it on LinkedIn. You could do this as a screen capture on your desktop, or do what I do, take a picture on your phone. When you take a picture, make sure you put your phone sideways, because LinkedIn prefers horizontal photos over vertical photos, which cut off the top and the bottom. So just turn your phone sideways, take a picture of something that the person is talking about on that webinar, on that networking event, and post it on LinkedIn. And what I would do is tag, you know, the organization who is hosting that event, as well as perhaps the MC for the event, and then tell people something you learned. So for example, today you might say, today I attended an amazing LinkedIn presentation by @Brenda Meller, tag me. Kudos to @Kendra Corman for booking her. Kendra, you're brilliant. This was put on through the @MSU Executive MBA program. So you're tagging Michigan State University as well, okay? When you tag people and or organizations, those individuals will be notified that they have been mentioned in the post, okay? Kendra, I'm getting a little bit of a network connection message on here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you fine.
Okay, I just want to make sure as we're going, when we get the Wi-Fi everybody's using in the house, and I want to make sure you guys can hear me. So just, I think you've got my cell phone number, don't you, Kendra?
You know what, I don't know. I don't think I do. If you want to, you could message it to me if you needed to.
Yeah, I will message it to you right now on LinkedIn. In case we are having any audio technical difficulties, guys, you guys are going to see it on screen if I type it in. So Kendra, I'm just going to tell you right now. It's 248-320-2976.
Yep. 320-2976. Okay.
Yeah, so in case we get any audio or technical glitches because we're in this world of technology, just text me and then I can dial in and we'll make sure we keep things going here.
Okay, got it.
Okay. All right, so again, if you are posting about today's event, feel free. There's a screen capture you want to grab as we're going throughout the presentation here today. If I pull your profile up on screen, you want to show your profile in the photo, that's totally fine too. But talk about events, and that's an example of what you could post as a daily post on LinkedIn. Tell people the event that you're attending, who put on the event, and then something you learned. So by doing so, you're kind of broadcasting, you know, how you're keeping active during times like these, and also you're showcasing your professional associations and affiliations. It helps to keep you top of mind, also brings you into the homepage feed. What I like to tell people is that your posts are for telling and your profile is for selling. Okay, so your posts are for telling, but your profile is for selling. So very, very rarely do I sell in a post. I very rarely will talk about Meller marketing and the fact that I offer LinkedIn strategy services and webinars and things like that. More often, what I am doing is I am telling things. I am telling you what I'm reading. I'm telling you what events I'm attending. I'm telling you about amazing people in my network or amazing organizations. I might be telling you about industry articles that I'm reading and some of my key takeaways, but I'm doing more informing, educating, inspiring as a part of my posts. Sometimes I give free samples, LinkedIn strategy tips, that type of thing. My goal is to get those posts read, and there's going to be a portion of you who, when you are reading that post, you feel good about me, right? You click to go to my profile, and then you read about me and my company, okay? And now you are open and receptive to me talking about myself. When you get to your profile is for selling. So I'm going to fill out the profile, make sure that I'm being very clear what I do, why I got involved in what I'm doing, contact information, listing products and services. You're more receptive to that. So your posts are going to be a way to bring people back to your profile where you can now start to sell yourself and your organization, okay? So tip number one we talked about already was including a personal note with your invitations. Tip number two is to post daily on LinkedIn. And if you're not posting daily now, at least try to post once a week, okay? Gradually work your way up, but the posts are going to drive profile views on LinkedIn. Okay, tip number three, spend 15 minutes every single business day on LinkedIn. And often when I'm working with clients, I had a conversation with someone just the other day, and she's like, Brenda, it's great, I get it, LinkedIn's an amazing network. Can you find me more hours in the day? And I said to this person, I'm like, Susan, no, I said, we all have the same 24 hours. And, you know, even the times we're in right now, I've got my husband, myself, my 2 school-age children working from home. We've all got 24 hours still in the day. But you can shift your time to make more time for LinkedIn. And 15 minutes a day on LinkedIn is not a lot that we're asking for. And here's an easy hack. When you get up in the morning before you, start your day, you might be going on Facebook or Instagram or scrolling through news sites or things like that. Why not go on LinkedIn first? Just spend 15 minutes on it first thing in the morning, scrolling through the homepage feed, and just starting by, what I do when I go to LinkedIn the first thing every day is I just scroll through the homepage feed and I think about, this is my news for my network. So I'm going to look and see, what is Bob McIntosh talking about? And I know Bob, I like Bob, so I might give a comment to his post. And then a few posts, I'm going to leave comments of 5 or more words on here. And that's really key to the algorithm. Don't just say great article, but I want to say something like great ideas, Bob, adding a comment here so my network sees this post. And when I put that comment on Bob's post, what happens is Bob's getting more views of that post, but also it broadcasts it out to my network. Okay, so it's helping to keep my name out there at the same time. So spending 15 minutes a day, simple to do. Interact with some of those posts on your homepage feed. When you see something that resonates with you, give it a like. If it's something particularly meaningful or interesting to you, add a comment of 5 or more words, and do that for a few posts every day. And think about LinkedIn as a communications channel that is now part of our lives. So once upon a time, guys, we did not have email. Does anybody remember those days, like the pre-email days where, there was only, and I remember it was like at the beginning of my college, we were just getting email. So before then, how were we communicating? We were communicating by letters and talking to people in person and by phone and all those other things. And then email became a part of our lives. And now I think about how long would you go without checking your work email if you're working? Maybe a day, probably not even, right? You're going to check it a couple times a day, if not keeping it open all day. LinkedIn should be the same way. You should be thinking about this is a communications channel that you have to be listening to, and at least once a day for 15 minutes just to see what's going out there in the business world and with your connections. Okay, so that's my third tip for you, is to spend 15 minutes every business day on LinkedIn. The fourth tip for you is to respond to all comments that are made on your posts with 5 or more words. So when I go onto LinkedIn in the morning, I mean, the first thing I do is I scroll through my homepage feed. The second thing I do is I post. So I'll post once per business day on LinkedIn. And then throughout the day, I'm going to come back to that post and I'm going to see, am I getting any engagement? Are people replying back to that post? So this morning I put something up and I was just kind of thinking about, I was actually in my spam folder because somebody said they sent me a link and I couldn't find it. So I went in my spam folder and I was like, oh shoot, there's like 3 or 4 messages in here waiting for me. And that inspired me to post. And I said, a friendly reminder, check your spam folder. And then I put here's some quarterly technology things that I do. Google my name, check my cell phone voicemail messages, things that I haven't followed up on. And then I ended by saying, what other items would you suggest adding to this technology task list? And, so far I've actually gotten, I think, 5 comments and I've replied back to them. So that's why you see 10 comments. So I reply to every single person who responds to my post with 5 or more words. 5 or more words is a key thing here, guys. So I'm going to say, thank you for your comment, Imtiaz, or appreciate your insights, Estella. I'm going to reply back. That helps to promote engagement, both with the individuals receiving comments on your post, but it also helps to broadcast that post out to more people so that you're extending reach for your posts on LinkedIn. Okay. So that's my fourth tip, is to respond to all comments made on your post with 5 or more words. Kendra, I'm just going to take a quick breath here to grab a sip of water. How are we doing so far? Questions coming in?
We're doing well. We've got a handful of questions that we started with at the beginning. So as soon as you get to a place on it, I will pull those out.
Okay.
Because one person had said, thanks so much for hosting. What are some tips and tricks about making sure that LinkedIn doesn't become the new Facebook feed? So she's seeing a lot of sharing articles and posting opinionated posts, and it's really turning her off to LinkedIn.
Yeah, so what I would say to that is the LinkedIn, everybody has a different view of LinkedIn, and there's basically an algorithm that's running behind the scenes. And the goal of the people at LinkedIn is to keep you on LinkedIn longer. So they want to serve you up with content that is interesting, relevant for you, and that you have a higher likelihood of engaging with. Now, they're not going to always get it right. Sometimes they're going to share content with you that is getting a lot of engagement within your network, but might not be relevant or interesting to you. So you can actually retrain the algorithm and get some of those posts that are more Facebook-like out of your feed by doing a few things. One is, when I go to the post, I could click on the 3 dots and I could say, hide this post. I don't want to see it anymore. So now I'm not going to see it in the homepage feed, even though people keep having commentary going back and forth on it. I could also unfollow the person whose post keeps coming up. Like, I usually use an example, like maybe my brother-in-law, I can't disconnect from him on LinkedIn, but he's an insurance salesman. I don't want to see his posts anymore. So I could just unfollow him. And that's a good way of kind of keeping that family relationship, because when I see him at Christmas, he's not going to be like, why'd you disconnect from me on LinkedIn? But I don't want to see his posts all the time, right? So you could unfollow them. That's another thing. So you can start to retrain the algorithm. And the third thing you can do is just ignore the post. So when it comes in your homepage feed, don't like it, don't comment on it. And eventually LinkedIn's going to say, okay, Brenda is never interacting with Frank's post. We're not going to show her Frank's post anymore. Okay, because they only want to show you content that is relevant, that is interesting, and that has a higher likelihood of having you engage on the post. So you certainly can retrain the algorithm by putting engagement on posts that are more relevant for you. Hopefully that helps out. I mean, people are going to post things on LinkedIn that are Facebook-like. I don't take the bait. If there are things that I feel are not appropriate for LinkedIn, I ignore them. If they do not align with my morals and values, I will sometimes hide the post. Sometimes I'll disconnect from people too, especially political. If there are people that are sharing strong political beliefs that aren't in alignment with me, I may disconnect from them. But there's always this creep of, Facebook creeping over into LinkedIn, LinkedIn feeling more like Facebook, that type of thing. You can't control it, but what you can do is start to retrain that algorithm based on your interests. All right.
Great. Erin said, perfect. So thank you. And then just still on posting, and if you're going to cover this later, you can put me off, but someone was looking for advice on whether to post on their profile versus their company LinkedIn site for a new company that's single person, so solopreneur, where do you recommend that they post?
Yeah, great question. So what I think about is your personal profile is you speaking to your network. Your company page is your company speaking to your network. And as a solopreneur, we're kind of one and the same, right? I mean, Meller Marketing is Brenda Meller, Brenda Meller is Meller Marketing. But people don't know how large I am. I mean, Meller Marketing might seem like an agency. So kind of think of yourself as if you're larger than you are, and your company page is posting company information. And analogy I like to use here is that when we are connecting with people on LinkedIn and we're posting on our personal profile, we're interacting as ourselves. And it's almost like we're going to a shopping mall. And we might be there just networking and socializing with each other, right? We might be there because we're going to meet in the food court, or we're going to go shopping later, or just to get out of the house. But we're there kind of as individuals milling around the mall, right? Your company page is kind of like a store inside that shopping mall. So think about it like a Bath and Body Works. And when I walk into that store, that's the equivalent of me. I'm going to go to my company page right now. Me walking into that store is the equivalent of me visiting your company page on LinkedIn. When I walk into Bath and Body Works, I expect that I'm going to be seeing sales messages. I expect that an associate is going to walk up to me and say, "Welcome to Bath and Body Works," and they might even hand me a basket and say, "We're doing buy 3, get 3 free today. If I can help you find anything, let me know." And I'm like, curses, I was going to get out of here without buying something, and now I'm going to buy something. But I'm open and receptive to those sales messages. The other thing is when you go to a company page and you click on the follow button, that's kind of the equivalent of a hand going up and saying, "I am interested in learning more about your company." So in my Bath and Body Works, it's like when the salesperson comes up to me and hands me a basket, I take the basket from them because I'm planning on putting things in there to buy, right? So your company page can be really used effectively for lead generation, for business development. But I think about when people come to this company page, they are more receptive to sales messages, okay? And when I think about what I'm posting on the company page, these might be more industry articles, they might be product and service reminders of things that I'm promoting for my company. Occasionally I'll put in here like featured Q&A. So when I get questions from my network, I'll put them on my company page. I might put videos or webinars or blogs. I might recycle them on here as well. So these are more of the generic type of messages blended with sales messages. Whereas on my personal profile, I am posting messages that are telling. I'm informing, educating, inspiring, and it's me, Brenda Meller, versus my company page, it's Meller Marketing talking. Hopefully that helps out a little bit, creating some clarity. I agree, especially if you're a self-employed entrepreneur consultant, you're one and the same. So how do you kind of break those two out? But I think you definitely want to have both a personal profile as well as a company page on LinkedIn. All right, so I think we're gonna keep going, Kendra, if that's okay?
Yep, please.
All right, cool. So we've talked about tip 1, including a personal note. Tip 2 was posting daily. Tip number 3 was spending 15 minutes every business day on your homepage feed. Tip 4 is responding to all comments. Tip number 5 involves your profile photo on your LinkedIn account. So here's what I think about. Organizations put a lot of time, money, and effort into creating a brand, right? Whether it's colors, logos, the look of the building, the aesthetics of the building itself, you know, your annual report and all these other things. And then we have people who are representatives of our company who are on LinkedIn, and we look at their profile photo and we're getting an immediate first impression of these folks, right? And then there are mistakes. Either the photo is outdated, it was more than 10 or 15 years ago, it doesn't look like you anymore. It's not professional looking, it's a selfie. You know, my worst favorites are the ones with the hand over the shoulder, or the wedding photo where you're wearing a black tie or something like that. Or you're just not pleasant or smiling looking. It's more of like somebody caught you at an event and you crop that in your LinkedIn. So all of those things, I think, you know, your photos should be current, you know, taken within the past few years. It should be professional looking. And if you have the money to do so, invest in a headshot photographer. Or when your company says we have a photographer coming out to take headshot photos, take advantage of that. Get a professional looking photo. It is worth the investment because it helps to, especially you've gone through an executive MBA program, you want to position yourself for leadership roles. You're not going to do that with a selfie, okay? It is worth it. pleasant, smiling. Every time we look at your LinkedIn account, we are getting an impression of you. So when you're not pleasant, not smiling, we're kind of getting this impression every time that you're not a friendly type of a person, right? And that your face is 50 to 60% of the circle. This is an important thing. So when I go into my LinkedIn account, guys, if I click on the pencil icon, I can go into this header section, and then if I click on the pencil icon again, I can actually see this circle that pops up. Let me just give it a second here. I think I've got a little LinkedIn hiccup. Kendra, are you seeing this navigation as I'm doing this right now too?
Yep, I am.
Okay. So it looks like my internet's got a little hiccup going. So I'm going to wait for a second to see if this loads. But when you get to this phase, guys, you should see in here in this circle, there's a grid of like 9 squares that appear in here. It's not happening on my profile right now because I think I've got a little internet hiccup going up in the background, but you should see that grid of 9 squares that's coming up in there. And what I am trying to do, here it is, got it finally. So what I am trying to do in here is that the top of my head to the bottom of my chin, that should take up 50 to 60% of the circle. So the way I can get that alignment right is I'm going to put the top of my head aligning at the very top square in the middle, and the bottom of my chin, I'm going to have it right around the bottom of that second square. Then I know that my face is aligned properly. Why is this sizing important? Well, I want you to think about this. About 55% of web traffic to our LinkedIn profiles comes to us through mobile app. If you are very far back, you look a little bit more distant, it's harder for people to see you, right? You look less important, less approachable, and more diminutive. When you are more zoomed in, especially when they're viewing it on mobile, you look more impressive, you look more approachable, you look more genuine, okay? Especially if you have aspirations to move into an executive leadership role, you don't want to be looking like you're way, way far back in the background. So zoom in on your photo a little bit. There's actually just a little zoom tool in here that you can use to make that alignment, and then you can click on apply. This isn't a fashion show. We don't need to see your shirt and tie and your fancy suit and everything. We should really just be seeing a glimpse of your shoulder area. This is really for your face, for this headshot photo area. All right, so this is kind of my 5th tip, making sure that your profile photo is current, professional, pleasant, and that your face is 50 to 60% of the circle. And keep in mind, you can do that adjustment to zoom in a little bit on it from your desktop there. All right, let's move on to our 6th strategy tip here, which is focusing on your headline. So look at your headline on your LinkedIn account. And my guess is if I looked up many of you on LinkedIn, and I hope you don't mind Byron, I'm going to pull up his profile right now, just as an example here. Most of you probably have the default, which is job title at company. And this is the default. If you don't change it, that's what will be in your headline field on LinkedIn. I recommend that you change that to something that captures their attention. And I want you to think about this technique. So when I go back into, I'm gonna look at Byron's profile for just a second. Let me just type in the words account engineer, for example. So if I do a search on LinkedIn for account engineers, I'm typing in account engineer in the search bar at the top, and then I'm gonna click on people, okay? So this gives me the search results for account engineers on LinkedIn. And all I'm seeing in the search results, guys, is I see this headshot photo, I see the person's name, I see their headline field, and then there's some other stuff, the area and common connections, but I tend to ignore that. So as I'm scrolling down the search results, the thing that I'm really starting to pay attention to is their headline. And that headline can help to differentiate you from everybody else, or you can blend in, okay? I would think you don't want to blend in. I think you want to differentiate yourself. You want to stand out because your goal is to get someone to click to go to your profile where they can learn more about you, okay? So think about your headline as a headline, and even think about when you're scrolling around on the internet and there's a bunch of magazine articles, which article are you clicking on? It's the one with the interesting headline. So at minimum, I would change it to something that has some adjectives, some keywords, some phrases in it. If you look at my profile, I use the I help blank with blank formula on LinkedIn. Let me go back to it right now. So I say, I help people unlock the power of LinkedIn. That's what I do for my business. I don't say marketing consultant at Meller Marketing, because who cares? What does that mean, right? I'm thinking about this in terms of my ideal target audience. When I come up in search results, my goal is to bring you back to my profile, okay? So that's my 6th tip. Focusing on changing your headline from the default to something that captures their attention in the search results. All right, my 7th tip
Brenda,
here.
it looks like on your headline, it's pretty long. So do you know how many characters that it's limited to? Because people can go on, and
They can,
for a while.
and it's 120 characters is the limit for your headline field. And what I usually recommend is that when you're writing your headline, you want to be front loaded and top heavy. The most important words and phrases come at the beginning, because you can see sometimes in the search results on LinkedIn that some of those headlines will get cut off if they're a little bit longer. So after about the 80 character mark, you'll start to see ... and we can't see the rest of the keywords that are coming in there. So you have 120 characters. I use all 120 if I can, because it helps me to maximize the likelihood I'll come up in more searches on LinkedIn based on the keywords I'm putting in there. Here's a little bit of a hack. If you guys aren't aware of this, you can actually go into, if you have an iPhone, you can go into your headline on your iPhone and you can modify your headline to get up to 200 characters, okay? Now, if you go back on your desktop, LinkedIn will say your headline has too many characters and you have to delete it out again, okay? But you can always go back to your iPhone and make that adjustment to add more characters in there. I don't recommend doing so. I keep it at 120 just to keep things simple going back and forth. All right. And now that you've asked that question, Kendra, I actually just want to do a time check here. I do have a couple more points to cover, but I want to make sure that we have time for Q&A. So I think I'd like to open it up to Q&A instead of going through the rest of the points, and then you guys will have the handout if you have any questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kendra?
So I think that's fine, because we do have several questions. So if you can talk about what your position should read on your LinkedIn profile. So
yes.
There's a lot of people right now looking for their next position, and they're hearing that they shouldn't put that underneath their name because they won't be easily searchable for recruiters because LinkedIn has changed their algorithm.
Yeah, so really great point. And I'm guessing the question is being asked of people who are actively in career transition, not working for a company. There may be others of you on here who are wondering the same thing, but you're working and you don't want to set up any red flags or have people go, oh, she's looking to jump ship, or she's definitely jumping ship, right? So let me talk first to the job seekers in here. I would not recommend that you put anywhere in your headline in career transition, unemployed, even seeking for new opportunities, or ONO. I personally am not a fan of that. I feel like that's too desperate. I would rather have someone land on my profile, and then maybe in my about statement underneath see more, I might have a line that says, paragraph or so down, I might have a line that says, I'm currently in career transition seeking my next full-time opportunity as a marketing director. So let them discover it, but I would say don't put it at the top in your headline. Both, for one, it makes you look desperate. You want to look like you're a catch. You want to play a little bit hard to get there. Two, recruiters aren't looking for seeking new opportunities, unemployed. They're not looking for those keywords. They are searching for the job title: marketing director, engineering manager, account manager. That is what they're searching for. So use the keywords that are related to the job titles that you're seeking, instead of those seeking new opportunities keywords in your headline field. And also use your about statement to put a one line in there that says, I'm currently in between successes seeking my next full-time dream job as a XYZ. So it's okay to spell it out there, but let's tuck it underneath the see more statement there. And then for the other group, for those of you who are working, who are thinking about using LinkedIn for job search, but you don't want to set off any red flags or let your employer or your boss or anything know, don't put that anywhere in your profile that you're open to new opportunities. Obviously, there is a feature that you can enable on your LinkedIn account. I'm going to go to my profile right now, where you can designate that you are open to job opportunities, and you can specify that you only want recruiters to see that. If you're actively in career transition, you could show that to all LinkedIn members. There's no risk there. Or you could just put only recruiters. And what happens there is that LinkedIn will only show that to people who are using the paid version of LinkedIn Recruiting. So it's a subscription they have to pay for to get access to that. And they will say in that field that they will take measures to make sure that recruiters at your current company won't see it, but they can't guarantee that. What they mean by that is, if I work for ABC company, but we outsource recruiting to Kelly Services, anybody at my company can see it. And also Recruiters Talk. So if you put in there that you're open to new opportunities, you're still working, I might have my friend who's a recruiter at XYZ company look up to see who is open at my company. So just kind of be aware of that. I do have some additional tips for, job search if you're in stealth mode, you don't want your employer to know. If you're interested in that, just message me on LinkedIn. I've got a blog I'll send over to you with some additional tips on that.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then you did show how to customize your photo. Someone was asking about customizing the photo, the background that you had mentioned on Byron's.
Yeah, so what
generic.
Yeah, what I would recommend here is if you click on the little pencil icon and then you hover over into the top here, it's going to show you the ideal dimensions here are 1584 by 396 pixels. So Kata, pay attention to that. That's important. And then when you click on the pencil icon, you can click on change photo and you can just upload a photo that you have saved anywhere on your desktop. The program that I use to create my images in the background, it's called canva.com. I'm going to pull it up in the background here for you. You can set up a free account on canva.com. This is kind of like graphic design for dummies. And when you go in, when you have your account set up, you click on create a design. You can click on this little button that says custom dimensions and say 1584 by 396. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Create a design. And then you can find stock photography from other websites to upload into here, or you can just use what Canva has in here. And maybe I just use something that is nondescript, like a picture of mountains, and maybe I pull that into this frame on my profile. Let me see if I can get it to click into there. There you go. So something like that, and that's better than the default. I usually tell people to use a header image that aligns with your company or organization ideally, or your industry, your area of expertise. If not, at least something like mountains is a little bit better than the teal blue with the dots and the lines. So something that is descriptive of your brand personality is better than the default. Okay, so canva.com, it's free. I also use sites like pexels.com for free commercial use stock photography. Unsplash is another great site that I use for that, but that's the steps that you would go through to create
another one.
Yeah, Pixabay, that's a great one.
Yeah, another one. There's 3 or 4 different sites that you guys could use that are free, but whatever you do, do not just grab them off of Google.
Yeah, you want to be careful about that. I mean, and a lot of times nowadays, those Google images are kind of for free use, but I would say, especially on LinkedIn, you want to make sure that you're playing by the rules and that you're respecting people's artwork and photography for sure.
Great, thank you. So you'd mentioned the algorithm a couple of times. Some people have asked questions related to explaining the algorithm or better understanding what that is and what that's doing.
Yeah. Okay. So first thing first, nobody has the algorithm playbook. I'm an independent marketing consultant. I don't work for LinkedIn. I work for myself. I have connections that work at LinkedIn, but I will say they're not very forthcoming with showing you all the rules, pulling back the curtain, if you will, on what's happening. But what we do know is that every single social networking platform has an algorithm that's running behind the scenes, and it determines what is in your homepage feed, how long content stays in there, and how many people it is shown to. It also determines who's going to come up to the top of your search results, and your search results are going to look different than my search results because everybody's algorithm is gearing content and results towards you and your activities. Okay, so thinking about Google as a comparison, Google is always changing their algorithm for SEO, search engine optimization. And there's companies out there that just do SEO for a living. Some people maybe work for an SEO company, so you know that there are techniques once upon a time that you could do to your web page to increase the likelihood that you come up to the top of search results. And Google in some aspects says, well, that's gaming the system. You're stuffing keywords or things like that. So we're going to change the algorithm. We're going to penalize people that are doing keyword stuffing, and we're really trying to get organic results up to the top of search results. It's the same on LinkedIn and every other social network. They are trying to make sure that they are serving relevant content to you. Their goal is to increase time on site. Their goal is to sell you things. They are a business, right? Most of us are using the free version of LinkedIn. And by the way, everything I'm showing you here today is using the free version. I don't recommend that you upgrade unless there are features you need access to. Let me know if you have questions about that. But their goal is to serve you content that is relevant to keep you on the network longer. The longer you stay on LinkedIn, the more ads that they can serve you, the more likely you might be to upgrade to Business Premium or Sales Navigator, or to start doing LinkedIn advertising, paying money for them as well. So when I think about the algorithm, there's no way to break the code book and try to figure things out. But what you can do is kind of think about things from two perspectives. One is the human perspective, and the other is the technology perspective. The human perspective is I want to make sure, and I'm a marketer guy, so I want to make sure that I am posting content that is resonating with my ideal target audience, that is lining up with my business values and my business goals, and then I am paying attention to engagement, human behavior, right? And I am rewarding good behavior, comments, likes, and things like that, okay? So that's the human element of the algorithm. The technology element of the algorithm is, are you filling out your profile completely? Are you using keywords and phrases on your profile that are helping you to come up in more search results? And are you posting regularly? Are you putting fresh content on LinkedIn all the times? All of those things in both categories combined, the computer element and the people element, are going to help you to rank higher in the algorithm and to come up in more search results. Okay. Hopefully that helps out. That's kind of a crash course in algorithm, but it's an auto magical formula that happens in the background. I don't have the playbook, but what I will say is I talk to LinkedIn trainers and coaches from across the world, and we're always putting our heads together and saying, okay, it looks like they changed the algorithm. They're penalizing us for this and they're rewarding us for that. And then we say, yep, we agree. And then we've kind of said, okay, we need to do these activities. So hopefully that helps you out.
Great, thank you. So we do have another question. Under the experience section of my profile, what is the best way to summarize my experience? Is it a brief few sentences, or what was achieved or done?
Yep.
Similar to the resume?
Yeah, so your LinkedIn profile is really, this is for professional networking purposes, and it shouldn't be identical to what's in your resume, because the goal of a resume is to find a job. So, thinking of your profile from top to bottom, I always tell people, think about if I'm your ideal target audience looking at your profile, that's who you're writing this for. So they don't need to know how many accounts I closed and how much revenue I generated, because that's a resume speak instead. But if I'm looking at your experience section, here's the formula I like to use. Start with a 1 to 2 sentence description of your company. Let's assume the person who's landing on your profile can't quite place what your company is and what you do. So let's help them out by starting with a 1 to 2 sentence description of your company. Immediately after that, you might say, please contact me at phone, email, or website to learn more. Let's assume they want to do business with you. Let's make it easy for them. After that, I might have a one-line description that says a little bit about what your role is with the company, and certainly you can put a couple of achievements or bullets underneath that. Then maybe following with a list of products and services that your company offers. And then, just like Kendra's done, you can also upload some media into this section to make it a little bit more visually interesting. So again, I'm thinking here of who is my ideal target audience? What do they need to know? And what are the marketing or sales materials that I can give them if they happen to be viewing the experience section of my profile? Does that help out?
Thank you. Yeah, they'll let us know let me know if there's anything else. Okay, so here's a good one that I really like is, how do you make a lot of these updates to the profile photo and the background and your title and all that stuff without LinkedIn setting notifications to all your contacts that you've been busy? Because a lot of times if you're connected to your boss, you don't want to send them a flag, hey, I'm updating my LinkedIn profile.
So really, really great question. Once upon a time, LinkedIn would actually broadcast every change you made out to your network, and that is what you were referring to. So if you go under, and if you just see me, the navigation, I went under the me icon and then settings and privacy. I'm in the privacy area right now, and you see the section under how others see your LinkedIn activity. It is now called share job changes, education changes, and work anniversaries from profile. That is the only thing LinkedIn will now broadcast out. Once upon a time, they would say, Brenda updated her photo, Brenda updated her headline, Brenda updated her experience, and all those things were flying out. And I think people complain and they're like, whoa, I don't want this broadcast going out. And you could shut it off, and then you could turn it back on after you were done making profile updates. Now LinkedIn doesn't do that. The only thing it broadcasts out are if you change jobs, and you have to make sure that that change occurs within the current month. So if I add a position from 3 years ago, it's not going to broadcast that out. It's only a current position that I started in May of 2020, since that's the month we're in right now. education changes. So if I start my executive MBA at MSU or if I complete it, it will broadcast that out. Or work anniversaries. Congratulate Brenda on celebrating 4 years at Meller Marketing. That will go out. That's the only thing. Okay, the other changes no longer get broadcasted out. Good question.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions that everybody had, or that they've typed into the question panel. So we do appreciate your time. I don't know if you have any closing words, and then I can do the housekeeping items after that.
Sure. So I just want to say thank you for you guys for watching here today. I would encourage you, if you haven't posted yet today, if you could post about this session on LinkedIn, talk about, you know, anything that you learned in today's session that was helpful for you. Would love to hear your feedback. You know, message me on LinkedIn if you did attend, if we're already connected. If we're not already connected, I'm even seeing a few people coming in right now, Rodolfo, Michael. So if you guys are in the session here today, if we are not yet connected, just to remind you, when you go to my profile, the default button is follow. If you click on the more button, go underneath the more button, and there should be an option to personalize, invite, or connect. Click on that and then send me a note and reference today's session. Be happy to accept your invitation. And do keep me in mind, guys, I do offer both individual LinkedIn strategy coaching, assistance with profile rewrites for executives, and I'm doing some online team training and webinars, and I'm also doing virtual keynotes and presentations. So if you have a conference looking for speakers, let me know. I love sharing my knowledge of LinkedIn with others. And Kendra, thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the platform with you guys here today.
Thank you so much for your time, Brenda. We really do appreciate it and all the valuable information that you've shared with everybody. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who attended today's presentation with Brenda. We appreciate your time. Really do hope you found it valuable. In 24 to 48 hours, you're going to get a follow-up email. It'll have a link to the handout, a link to the recording, and a link to a survey asking you for some feedback on today's webinar to see, you know, what do you want to hear more of. So on behalf of the MSU Executive MBA Alumni Association and Brenda Meller of Meller Marketing, thanks so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. And now it's the tricky part. Hang on. Okay.